The deepest, darkest secret of my life is that I had a crippling gambling addiction.
I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about the harm I was causing. I didn't care about myself.
And I was up thousands at one point, but it wasn't enough.
The National Council on Problem Gambling says around 2.5 million adults in the United States have a severe gambling problem.
Very strong interest in sports. You know, it's always been the American thing to watch sporting events. I think the sports books have taken that away from families.
The American people are on course to lose more than $1 trillion of personal wealth. Predatory gambling is America's most neglected major problem.
In September of 2000, I robbed my first bank home, and then it just got worse and worse and worse. Over the course of 14 months from that September till November of 2001, it was 6 more banks and 4 hotels.
Roughly 1 in 5 problem gamblers attempt suicide, the highest rate than any other addictive disorder.
I had 4 attempts. 2 of them were with pills. One was me in a room while I was in the military and literally lowering my head and running as fast as I could, head first into the wall as many times as I could.
Had my balance up to $11,000, but I didn't stop. I lost it all in the next day.
So the entirety of the situation for you played out before you turned 21.
I'm not even 21 yet.
This video is brought to you by our generous sponsors, Right Choice Recovery and the Campaign for Fairer Gambling. Check the description of this video for more information about Right Choice's services and for the campaign's mission statement. Gambling isn't just becoming normal, it's completely taking over society. Gambling advertising is everywhere. Celebrities are promoting their favorite sportsbook or Celebrities are promoting their favorite sportsbooks or
new customers bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets.
Celebrities are promoting their favorite sportsbook or casino everywhere you look. God, you're seeing ads for gambling every time you scroll TikTok, even when you're doom scrolling on the toilet. Your kid's favorite streamer is getting paid millions of dollars to show themselves winning big and showing that gambling is this dream life. And on the business side, casino revenues continue to smash all-time highs, with 2024 being 42% higher than 2018's revenue. Since 2018, 38 states and Washington, D.C. have legalized online sports betting, with many states starting to legalize online casinos. In 2018, 22% of sports fans gambled on sports, but in 2024, that number's up to 55%. In just 6 years, the amount of people that sports bet has increased by 175%. How did this happen?
Bet 10 pounds and get 40 pounds in free bets.
You see, casinos are giving out free bets, and when I say free, I mean free in the same sense that drug dealers are giving out a little bag of Coke to get you hooked to the product. Risk-free bets that say gamble $1,500 and if you lose, we'll give it back to you. But what they don't want you to realize is that it's back in sight credit. And you have to wager that again before even thinking about withdrawing it. And it's not just generic free bets. It's AIs that are trained to provide you with the perfect promotions tailored to hook you specifically in those moments where you think you're about to start slowing down. But we should slow down for a second because you need to understand how we got here in the first place. How did gambling go from something that you and your buddies did twice a year to something that's being shoved down your throat every single day? Gambling's been around for forever. And in the US, it was even used to fund the Revolutionary War when they did a lottery. In fact, Benjamin Franklin was known for saying that gambling was robbery by consent. Over the years, different forms of gambling popped up around the country, like in the early 1900s, when the Italian mobs brought sports betting operations to the back of New York delis. Then, gambling began to explode as it became commercial business by 1906. As casinos popped up in Las Vegas, and then once again in the 1970s when the Atlantic City casinos opened up.
The click of the slot machines, the vast gaming areas, are another adaptation by Jersey Shore entrepreneurs.
Early casinos had this high-class feel to them. I mean, you were even required to wear a suit jacket to place a bet in some locations. And then eventually, they even became family-friendly environments that became really popular vacation destinations. But things have changed drastically. Now, we have kids gambling on the toilet, and it seems like everyone around you is talking about their last parlay that missed by just one leg.
I should get some sleep.
It should come as no shock that as more people are gambling, more people will begin to experience gambling problems. In this series, we're going to show the harsh reality of gambling and gambling addiction today, how powerful the gambling industry has become, and what will happen to gamblers in America if nothing changes about where we're heading. I'm in recovery from gambling addiction myself. I made my last bet November the 12th of 2022. And since that point in my life, I've made it my mission to spread the message online that gambling addiction is real. I share my story because I don't want to see people go down the same path that I did. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to reach millions of people every single month with this message.
Rob Minnick used to be addicted to gambling.
Rob Minnick says he went into debt 6 times over the course of 6 years.
25-year-old Rob Minnick says he learned the pitfalls of wagering money the hard way.
For 25-year-old Philadelphia resident Rob Minnick.
On today's episode, we have Rob Minnick.
Rob, welcome.
Thank you for having me on. It started with daily fantasy sports contests online with my friends. By the time that I finished my gambling, I was spinning slots for 8 hours a day, and I had honestly memorized the soundboard of the game I was playing on. I knew with my eyes closed how much each bet had won or lost. I was making over 100 spins a minute, and I went into debt 6 different times because of my gambling, all before I turned 25. If you want to understand how things got this bad for me, you need to first understand what a gambling addiction actually is. And instead of telling you myself, I interviewed 3 gambling addiction experts. Here's what they said. Dr. Tim Fong, the co-director of the UCLA Gambling Studies program.
Addiction is a brain disease. My generation knew addiction as an issue of morality, a lack of willpower, greed. And so it was fascinating to me in medical school to say, well, wait a minute. There are these people that are addicted to, quote, behaviors, gambling, shopping, video games, and they're not ingesting a drug, so what's happening to their body, brain, and mind? All the research that started to come out, neuroimaging research, genetics, biological, psychological research, all started to point that gambling addiction resembled substance use disorder.
Abdullah Mahmood, a gambling addiction counselor from Maryhaven Treatment Program in Ohio.
Disorder gambling is, meeting at least 4 of the 9 criteria that's outlined in the DSM-5, which is basically the Bible for clinicians, to diagnose and treat many people with mental health issues and addiction issues. If you meet at least 4 of those 9 criteria, some of those criteria being that if you're lying to your family, friends, and loved ones about your gambling, if you're chasing one's losses, if you're increasing your bet sizes, if you're preoccupied with the thought of your next bet, those are just some examples of the 9 criteria that one would have to meet.
Dr. Ken Martz, a clinical psychologist from Pennsylvania who's been working with gambling addicts for decades.
So addiction is an old word that actually means to be chained. When I'm doing social gambling, I'm having fun. And when the fun stops and I'm getting pulled along outside of my will, even after I no longer want to be playing or I'm playing more than I want to be playing, and I'm having to hide it because I'm doing more than I intended to, that's when it's become a problem. That can cause problems financially. If it affects my finances, what doesn't that affect? I mean, that's gonna affect my work, my leisure time, my relationships, everything.
Now, gambling actually changes the structure of the brain, the same way that drugs or alcohol do. So I asked them about the effects of gambling on our physical and mental health.
There's a lot of ways that it affects the brain. The simplest one is that it activates the neurochemicals that cause us to have pleasure. Dopamine is the fancy term for it. When I get a little hit of dopamine, it feels good. And so I want a little more of that. And so I start to crave a little bit more. And that's the simplest solution because that then also becomes a withdrawal effect. I wanted that rush and now I no longer get that rush from the internal chemical of it.
What are some challenges that people who are struggling with gambling face that are unique to gambling?
Finances. What's really unique to gambling than substance use or drug use is that people feel like as though they have that element of hope and eventually gambling is going to fix their problem. You don't have that so much with drug and alcohol use to where there's a large element of hope attached to this disease. If I keep on playing, eventually I am going to hit, but how much money am I going to wager to get to that point? You have no limitations on this. I can have a never-ending supply of money, or I can feel like it when I take out personal loans, payday loans, and other avenues to finance my gambling. You have limitations on drug use and alcohol use to where I will get poisoning. There's a risk of overdose. There's no limitations on gambling. Then you also have that random reinforcement schedule to where people feel like as though they're hooked. Every so often they get a reward, and as they perpetuate that cycle, they feel like as though they're getting hooked as more of like a dopaminergic response, right? Very similar to drugs, alcohol, and other substances.
When I have a learned behavior that I do again and again and again and again and again and again, it becomes automated in the brain. So it's a little harder to stop once you get in the middle of it.
Wait, so he's saying that the more someone gambles, the more likely it is that they get addicted to it because their brain gets used to it? No wonder we're seeing more people getting addicted. It seems like everyone's gambling nowadays. I wonder what else is causing an increase in the amount of addiction we're seeing.
Isolation, doing anything solo is a concern. The power of the phone, the power of all this mobile sports betting, it's much easier to drive this entertainment activity into solitude. But on the whole, we as humans crave positive social connections. We love it when we're together, but the phone has made it so much easier not to be together.
Why do people still think that they can win? We always hear this expression that the house always wins, but yet people still gamble, thinking that they're going to be the exception to the rule. For slots, you gamble for hours, and you believe that you're due to hit eventually if you just keep spinning. But what you don't realize is that the odds are completely independent of each other on each spin. They're controlled by a random number generator. You're not due to win big. You're due to lose your money. When playing blackjack, you think you have the perfect strategy. Stand on this, hit on that, split on these, and double down on this. This perfect strategy doesn't always work, does it? The casinos are still winning 50.5% of the time, even if you use that perfect strategy. Meaning that if you keep playing, eventually, you're gonna lose it all. And some people truly believe that sports betting is investing, not gambling. But on every single bet, the house has an edge. Many people try to hit big with these huge parlays. But in New Jersey, for example, parlays made up 32% of all sports bets, yet made up 72% of all the sportsbook's revenue. So the casino is definitely the one that's winning big. Even if you're a pro gambler, you'll still lose it all eventually. I mean, take Greg Weber for an example, a pro poker player that ended up losing everything.
I was hooked from the beginning. I loved everything about it. I loved that there was competition to it. A normal guy could make millions of dollars playing a poker tournament. So that kind of got everything started for me at a very early age. It started with $5 games with my friends. And then, you know, when I turned 21, I'm playing $200 tournaments in Atlantic City. Then a few years later, it's $1,500 tournaments. It increased over time for sure. And towards the end, I'm playing tournaments for $3,500 to $5,000 on a semi-regular basis. All of my friends saw the big wins. They saw me on TV playing a poker tournament.
He's not lying. He really was a professional poker player. I mean, here's a clip from him from a final table he was at.
Play because I just called these guys playing very deceptive poker. Greg with a king jack of clubs not gonna raise.
Nobody ever saw the negatives. Like they didn't see the damage it was doing to my mental health. Like my mood was entirely based on if I was winning or losing. I guess that's kind of why they call it the hidden addiction, is because nobody saw the negatives and they only saw the positives.
You would say then that even a professional gambler can develop a gambling addiction?
100%. I know for a fact now, looking back with like a clear head, that so many people that I played poker with had a similar problem that I did.
In 2018, Greg won $471,000 at a poker table, which he then lost over the following months chasing after the next win. It goes to show that for a compulsive gambler, no win is ever enough. We're always chasing after that next one. And look, sometimes it's not even your fault for thinking that you could be a pro gambler. It's everywhere that you look online, especially for young people. For example, here's AJ's story.
You know, scrolling through YouTube, TikTok even, you see people gambling and they just promote it. Gambling is good, gambling is this, gambling is that. And you see all these people getting these huge wins and you're like, well, why can't that be me? So I downloaded DraftKings. My mom trusted me to make an account. I explained to her that I don't have a problem and I'll be fine. I just want to use it for sports. Completely lied to her. I started depositing into DraftKings, lost $2,500 in one day. It got worse when I downloaded FanDuel. I'm losing my whole paycheck, over $2,000 a check, and I'm just losing the entire thing. Still chasing that high, trying to make everything back as fast as I can. Now we're into the summer of 2024, and this is the worst of it. I'm driving down the shore, and you know the billboards, BetMGM. They have a deposit match for $1,500. So I took that as an opportunity to just download that and use that to my advantage. This was a late night. I'm by myself in my bed. You know, what else am I gonna do? So I go into BetMGM and I'm playing a casino game now. And I had my balance up to $11,000. You know, I told myself, this is the stopping point. Like, you got everything back. But I didn't stop. I don't know what kept driving me to keep playing. I lost it all in the next day, and it was just such a hopeless feeling. My parents were like, what's wrong? You know, like, we're on vacation. And I was, nothing's wrong. No, I'm good. Meanwhile, I have practically nothing in my bank account now. Scavenging around my room looking for cash, driving to the bank, goes into my account, and I put it right back into the gambling app. I went through DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, ESPN Bet. I was on Fanatics now. I was a caretaker. You know, nobody there knew anything about what was going on internally with me. Took a blank check from the owner of the household. I wrote it out for $10,000 and tried to cash it. Looking back, that was the most disgusting thing I've ever done.
So the entirety of the situation for you played out before you turned 21.
I'm not even 21 yet.
It's not just social media that's convincing you that you'll win big. It's also the marketing campaigns from the gambling platforms themselves. They advertise gambling as the #1 feeling, or something that's gonna help you progress in society. But maybe even more insidiously, there's influencers that profit directly off getting you hooked to gambling, because they make the bulk of their money through referrals. Basically, when you use their code to sign up for an online casino platform, they get paid a portion of your losses forever. So while they say, use my code to get some free money to play with, the translation is basically, use my code to make me a bunch of money and drain your savings. These influencers build massive communities, which basically serve as echo chambers of people motivating each other to keep gambling. Because hey, the big win is only one spin away, right? There's also the psychology that goes into casino advertising at play here. They portray gambling as high status, and in a generation that's lonelier than ever and feeling more behind than previous generations, they pitch gambling as the optimal shortcut to success. And there's even more psychological tricks happening in the design of the games themselves, like the idea of a near miss, a losing outcome that closely resembles a win. It's essentially a situation where a gambler feels like they almost achieved a winning result, but in reality they fell short by a small margin. And it actually triggers more dopamine in your brain than winning does, because it's providing that motivation to try one more time and finally get there. Casinos know that you want to get the biggest payout possible, which is why parlays have boomed in popularity, because you keep almost winning by just one leg. This is how sports betting is slowly becoming the new slot machine. And with the rise of online casinos, it doesn't even feel like you're losing real money. It's more like you're playing a video game and you're losing coins. There are now more games accessible to you than ever before, with thousands of different online games and slot machines available 24/7 from basically anywhere around the world. The real danger of this is that if people gamble more, they become more likely to develop a gambling problem. So look, it should be clear from this that gambling has exploded in popularity in America. But as more people start to gamble, we're inevitably gonna see more people get addicted to it. How bad is it actually going to get though? Find out in the next episode and make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss it.
About 86% of the revenues online are coming from the 5% of gamblers who are likely to be addicted or at risk.
The majority of the US population were against sports betting, even when sports betting was legalized. But then the ads started coming.
I thought that the American Gaming Association existed to protect the fairness of casinos, to make sure that the players were protected, that the casinos were operating fairly, and the games were as the rules of the game said they should be. I literally could not have been more incorrect if I tried. The numbers, they don't pass the smell test. They're misleading, and I think anyone that reads this should know it.